There we go. Okay, so we're recording.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another HEAC year. Thank you for being here. We hope you had a great summer. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 2:37 p.m. And we're going to do so with a roll call vote. Just before we do the roll call vote, just a reminder that members attending remotely must state the reason why physical attendance is not reasonably practical, and it shall be stated in the minutes of the meeting. Identify the persons present in the location from which the member is participating. Be able to contemporaneously and throughout the meeting see and hear and be seen and heard by the other members of the public body. And then we must take all votes by a roll call vote. So with that, we'll go ahead and start a roll call vote. Senator Ward is not in attendance. Representative Kutab is not in attendance. Representative Peternell.
Here.
Heather Barker. Here. Althea Barton.
I am here remote due to family obligations, and there is no one else in the room.
Thank you. Thank you for all that. Katie, could you also provide those details for yourself since you're attending remotely?
Yes, remote family obligations and no one else is in the room.
Thank you. Okay. Jill is not
Nope.
currently present. Michael Koski.
Present.
Diane Nolan.
Present.
Lindsay Pattison.
I am here remotely due to family obligations and there is no one else here in the room.
Thank you, Lindsay. Marcus Zirk. I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation. He is not with us at this time, and I am currently here. With that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members in attendance. So we do have a quorum to hold a meeting. So thank you, everyone. At the top of our agenda, we have appointments and resignations. We did have one person whose term expired and did not seek renomination, and that's Rebecca Woodman, and we will miss her very much. We do have our new appointments for this year are Heather Barker, Althea Barton, Lindsay Pattison, April Villani, and Marcus Zirk. With that, it might be nice to go around the table and around and just have everyone introduce ourselves. How's that? Great. Okay. All right, so let's do it. You guys want to do it alphabetically? Is that good? If so, we'll go with Heather.
Okay, Heather Barker, and I am representing the New Hampshire School Administrators Association and the Student Services Center at NHSAA.
Thank you, Heather. Althea.
I'm Althea Barton, and I represent the New Hampshire Homeschooling Coalition. And I have 2 young adult kids, homeschooled kids.
Thank you, Althea. Mike.
Michael Koski and homeschooling family and wear. Also work in public education.
Thank you. Diane.
Diane Nolan from Catholics United for Home Education, home educator.
Thank you. Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Pattison. I'm representing home educators here in the state of New Hampshire. I have 2 children that I educate at home, grades K and 3.
Thank you. Katie.
Representative Katie Peternell. I'm from Wolfboro and I'm on the the House Education Committee.
Thank you. And I am April Villani, and I'm here representing Catholics United for Home Education. And I have young children in elementary and middle school that I also educate at home. So thank you very much. So with that, we'll go ahead as a quick hello because we have a lot on our agenda. We'll keep moving. We do have some recruitments for vacancies this year. So we still have 2 home educator associations organized within New Hampshire positions open. And we also have 1 position open for the New Hampshire School Boards Association and one for the New Hampshire Association of School Principals. And I know Tim has something about that in his report. Do you want to
Yes.
wait to your report? To
No,
address
I
that,
can
or-
take care of it now and then skip it later. For everybody, Tim Carney, Administrator of Educational Pathways for the department. So I reached out School Boards Association. They will not be nominating anybody this year. And then working with Heather actually helped us find somebody who was nominated by the New Hampshire Association of School Principals. We're just waiting for the commissioner to complete an interview to see if he will actually appoint that person. So he's got a busy schedule. It's
Yeah,
hard to get on
no
his
problem.
schedule. So that would be great if we could fill that position. And again, the two other Home Education Association, I don't know if you want to share what we spoke with before we started the meeting.
Sure.
You want me to?
Oh,
just
yeah,
to-
yes.
Just
yes.
to, so just to clarify, so the way the law reads, it says, those two positions, the people just have to be nominated by a home education organization in the state. What an organization or association is not defined. And those people don't have to be a member of that organization. So if an organization is comfortable nominating someone from outside their organization, they can certainly do that and just send a nomination to myself or to the commissioner's office. And it'd be great to fill those two positions if possible.
And I'm so sorry, I didn't call your name when I was going down my
Oh, that's
list.
fine.
So, but
We took care of that too.
thank you. Yeah, Tim's awesome and he's here to support us and he does a really good job of it. So we're happy that he's here. So thank you. So moving along to immediate business, we had a presentation scheduled, but the presenter is not here. So we're just gonna move right along over that. The next item of immediate business is a selection of chair and secretary based on RSA 193 A:10, Roman numeral 3. The chair of the council shall be elected by the council members from the home educator membership on the council appointed under subparagraph Roman numeral 1, small letter C. So the chair does need to be someone representing the home educators. So with that, I'll open the floor for nominations.
I nominate you. Are you already the chair?
Well, as last year.
Yeah.
Is there,
so-
is there,
Yeah, we would really like to consider you the chair again.
is there anyone interested in either of these positions?
Oh, you're doing a great job at it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean that most sincerely.
If I were to accept the nomination, is there anyone who would be willing to do a vice chair position, even though it's not required? Just someone to bounce ideas off of, make sure agendas are okay. Okay, well, with that, I will accept the nomination. And any discussion? Oh, I guess we should have, that was a nomination, is that
Yeah,
an
so we
official
need-
motion?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm making it, so somebody has to say.
I second the nomination.
Great.
Okay, thank
Of
you.
course,
Are we gonna let Althea have that second?
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and any discussion?
Only to say thank you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you,
Yes.
Althea. Thank you, Mike. Okay, on a roll call vote, for the chair to be April Villani. Lindsay,
You're good? Yes, I third the vote, second the votes.
okay, thank you. Diane,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Althea,
Yes.
and Heather.
Yay.
And I'm going to actually abstain.
Oh,
So-
I was supposed to write these.
Yes. So with that, the motion carries that April Villani is the chair of the Home Education Advisory Council.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you very much for your vote of confidence. I'll do my best.
Can I get a copy of your roll call sheet
Absolutely.
at the end?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Okay, moving along, we need a secretary. Anyone willing to accept that role? Diane?
Doesn't it have to be a nomination?
Well, I'm
I
asking first if anybody wants the role. If not, if there's-
nominate Diana.
Althea, I'll second Althea's that. You did a great job when Althea
On the one time.
was absent. Yes,
Yeah.
and Althea did a great job.
Yes.
And you'll accept the nomination?
Uh-huh.
Any discussion?
No, I'm thrilled. This is great news.
Okay, no discussion. We'll move to a vote. Mike,
Yes.
Althea,
Yes, and thank you.
Heather,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So with that, congratulations, Diane, you are a new secretary. Thank you for taking on that responsibility.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, moving right along. The next item is best practices review. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look over this. Just with new members, it's always good to go over what we determined to be best practices as a council. So would anyone like to read this aloud?
Sure, I
Okay.
will. I'll be
Okay,
glad to.
great, thanks, Heather.
So number one, HEAC meets September through June on the third Friday of every other month with alternating months as the placeholder as needed. Number two, HEAC meetings will occur at a location provided by the Department of Education. Number three, the chairman ensures the preparation of a draft annual report for approval by a majority vote of the council prior to presenting it to the State Board of Education. A minority report may be prepared. Number four, the chairman may delegate responsibilities to the vice chairman and other council members as needed. Number five, meeting notices will be posted on the NHED website and at the NHED meeting location at least 24 hours in advance in accordance with RSA 91-A requirements. The agenda will be published on the NHED website. Number six, HEAC allows council members and the public to attend remotely in keeping with RSA 91-A. Number seven, the public will have an opportunity to address the council during the public comment section of the meeting and at the discretion of the chairman. The individual will identify themselves by name, city or town, and affiliation if appropriate. Number eight, HEAC meeting notices, agendas, minutes, and annual reports shall be published on the NHED website.
Thank you very much for
You're
that.
welcome.
Are there any questions? Those were last revisited in September of last year. It would have been nice to have something like this when I came on the council, so I'm very grateful of the work that was done to get these. Okay. All right. If there's no questions, oh, Althea, yes, ma'am.
I just had a question, and if memory serves, this was reviewed by an attorney, is that correct?
Yeah.
No,
Oh, I thought that was the lady.
the ask was made.
Yeah, and
Oh,
we
okay.
still have not received.
Right, we
an
have
answer.
not received a response to the request.
Okay, and so, so I'm looking at these were, I can see it has adoption dates on each item
Mhm.
Mhm.
and updated September 15th. So today, are we just reviewing this document?
That was the intention. Would you like it to be on the agenda at another date to talk about any revisions or updates?
I think I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
And, so unless anyone else has any questions about it, I think I'm all right.
Thank you. Okay, hearing no other questions, we'll move right along to agenda review. Does anyone have any additions, deletions they would like to make, or change of order to the agenda? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, we'll move right along. Next on our agenda, room number 5, minutes of the previous meeting, which was May 17th, 2024. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
Oh, I have a comment about them. On page 2. Yeah,
Okay,
under member reports. Ward reported on changes. It says Rep. Peternell is working with the parents, but I believe that's Rep. Kutab.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or corrections needed? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes as of May 17th, 2024, as amended on page 2 under member reports, second line, changing Representative Peternell to Representative Kutab?
I make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll
Althea.
second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. On a roll call vote. Mike,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Althea,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So our minutes are approved. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, Roman numeral number 6 is public comments. But seeing that there is no public present in person nor online, just let the minutes reflect that there was no member of the public present to present public comments. And we'll move right along to Roman numeral 7, Commissioner's Report, updates from the New Hampshire Department of Ed.
All right,
Tim, take it
thank
away.
you. New staff. So we did hire a part-time person to help with the programs that I manage. And Allie Landergan, she joined the Bureau to support all our programs, but really I've had her focused on home education. And at this point, she's really, I've transitioned her as the department's home education liaison for the field. So all the calls that now come in to my phone get sent to hers, and she handles all the emails, but with my support, as needed. We always talk about these issues before we send emails back out, because as I think you do, we get really unique and complicated questions sometimes. And so it takes a bit for somebody to get up to speed on the nuances of home education, and also what a department response can be versus a organization like yours could be. They are quite different because of legalities. And so we have to be careful with how we respond in many ways, because we are a state agency. So Lindsay, Allie's been doing a great job. So it's very exciting to have her on board to do that, so we can be more responsive. And so another thing she's done is been able to work on the webpage, as we had talked about for a number of meetings. So we're still working on the FAQ document, but there's actually a file and a document that has questions in it, so that's made progress. But I've had to really work on the webpage. We made some more clarifications on the process and differences between home ed and EFA on the home ed webpage. We've added a section on child find on the webpage, and how that applies to home educating families. We've reached out to our non-public schools. That's another program she and I both work on, and requested anybody who wants to be listed on our webpage as a participating agency should send us information. I know some of the associations have that information. Ours is fairly sparse at the moment because the non-public schools, only a handful responded so far, but I think we'll build that as people become aware. So if you're aware of any non-public schools that are participating agencies, if you want to let us know, we can reach out directly and see if they want to be on our webpage, so we can build up that resource. And then I think this was a mention from Althea. We did include the language from the chapter 279:2 laws of 1990 under our home education statutes. It was it's chapter 279:2 laws of 1990. And I believe that was one of the first laws around home education. in New Hampshire. We had a reference to it at the top of our webpage, but it didn't exist electronically anywhere, so we just retyped it from one of the law books and put it on our webpage. So that was something Althea had mentioned, so, or your group had mentioned, so we did do that. So that's on there now. So that was a good catch.
Going the extra mile.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's good to know. It took me a while to find it. I had to go through we have the books downstairs, so I had to go back to all the law books and try and find the actual language. So we have that on there now. And so we'll continue to put resources and information on the webpage now that Ally's available to kind of work on that. And she actually got the training to physically make those changes on our website system, which is always an issue I don't know how to do that, and only certain people are allowed to do it. So, so we have all that resolved. So now when we need to make a change, we can make a change immediately. Item 3, vacant HEAC memberships. I think we did cover that, so I won't repeat that. And then I did reach out to item 4 is the status of the ED 700 HISET rule change that affects home education students. I did reach out to Sarah Wheeler from Adult Education. Unfortunately, that's been stalled simply because of the 306s everybody's time in legal and rulemaking. And so I think those are almost done. Adopted at the last board meeting, they adopted the second half on Monday. They have to go through what's called GELCAR still. But so Sarah was hopeful she could get a meeting with, again, it's Liz Brown, to kind of get those back going again. But everybody else's rules have been kind of put on hold because of that. And that's about it. So super excited about Ally. She's unfortunately out sick today. I was hoping you guys could meet her. And she home educated her kids for a while.
Awesome.
So I think your kids go to a private school now. So,
Okay.
so she's super supportive of home education. So it's great to have someone that has been involved actually supporting the community from the department as well. So,
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
Any question about the home education report from the department?
I have a question. Is there a form that EFA fill out that's different from the homeschool form?
yeah. So and this is the confusion that goes along with the EFA in the field, right? So as far as I know, they register with the Children's Scholarship Fund. No. And I've been, again, as you all know, there's a lot of confusion. I just had a conversation I've been working with for 2 years. All kinds of issues. Just for her to mention that, oh yeah, we've been EFA for 3 years. Okay, then you don't need to be talking to me. I don't do EFA, so there's still a lot of confusion in the field. And there's, we've tried to clarify it on our website we had the EFA section, and now there's language saying this is not home education under 193A. So we'll look at it to see about the new language. But it's very frustrating for us when we let's say home education, and they're really in the EFA program. And they're, as in law, they're required to terminate their home education program prior to accepting an EFA.
Okay.
So that's an issue being fleshed out on the EFA side, because I think we've done all we can on the home education side. It's a completely different set of laws and rules.
Okay.
We try to educate the parents who reach out to them, make sure they're not in. We give them the link to the Children's Scholarship Fund. Right. That's what we do. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments about the home ed report? I do have a question.
Yep.
Not about the report in particular, but
Mhm.
this may be something to speak about at a later time at a different meeting. And I know it's not your wheelhouse because you don't support EFA. I had a parent come to me and was asking about, there's some differences in the law.
Yeah.
As far as, home educators have access to public programs under the law. But the EFA scholars do not.
Right.
So a parent was
That's my
asking,
understanding, yeah.
okay, a parent was asking me, and I don't know the answer to this. It was more about the funding of how that happens if a EFA student should be rejected or versus a homeschool, a home educated student, is there a way to look like for a SAS ID or SASA ID, I'm not sure how you say it.
SASID, yeah, SASID.
And to verify the status of a student so that schools can request funding for a home ed student.
Yeah, it's my understanding, and again, Brian Volk would be no more,
Right.
but it's my understanding that all EFA students have a SASID.
Okay,
And that's how the schools do a.
so
And
the
so
assumption would be if they don't have an active
If they-
SASID ID,
they would not be an EFA student.
Okay.
Right, so they'd be something else. SISAD,
and that stands for, do you know what the acronym stands
it's
for?
Student Identification
I thought
System,
thought-
something,
State
or state,
signs.
yeah,
SASID.
is it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the checks Brian works on in the Children's Scholarship Funds is they do accounting of SASID numbers. And when students started and entered the district or left the district to make sure the funding all flows as it should
Okay,
appropriately. So that's an internal control they have.
okay.
I don't know all the details of it, but I know, I hear Brian talking about it.
Have you heard any issues with, and you may or may not have, with students who may want to opt out of the EFA program to home educate? And for whatever reason, the system not be updated or terminated that they're an EFA
No,
student?
no,
Okay.
because I wouldn't be in the weeds with that. Brian would know.
So Brian would have. more
Yeah,
information about that.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very
Yep.
much. I appreciate that.
So just to reiterate, you're asking whether or not someone who's an EFA who was a homeschooler or but whether it can flip both ways can use the student, the school sports or
The question I had was more about how do schools determine funding or who they can request? You know, for example, if you're gonna do school sports, or if your child was going to do school sports and they're home educated, then they have equal access, but that's not true for EFA students. So they may request the fees to cover a program like, let's say your child may take an art program. So a school could potentially charge a fee to an EFA scholar. So it was more the mechanics of how do schools figure this out? Now there's this formula for funding for schools, and I'm sure it's very complicated.
Yes, that's why.
But
I
how
don't
you get in
into
those weeds to make sure that, and how do you determine if someone's, home ed versus EFA, and.
Right.
And the conversation was, well, maybe it's an assumption if they don't have, an ID at the state level,
Right,
that they're a home educated student.
right, or a private school student.
Private school students do not have
SASID, no.
really?
Oh, no, no,
Oh. okay.
they're not in the public school system, so they wouldn't have a SASID. But they have the
Okay.
same right of access as a home ed
Okay,
child, so
okay.
they would also be in that same bucket of kiddos.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move right along to the Home Educator Association representatives, and we'll start with Ms. Barton.
Right, so let me just pull up my notes. So we did have a number of questions come in this time period here, and a second. I just keep pulling that up. Okay, so yeah, we've had some pretty active conversations among our members, and with several questions that came up that we wanted to run by you. And they're somewhat, one at least is somewhat related to what you've been talking about. So the first one is, well, the first one may be a simple one. Can a student get a tax credit scholarship through Children's Scholarship Fund under 193A? In other words, yeah, that's the question.
student get a tax credit scholarship under 193A?
If the student is eligible, then they certainly may apply. I mean, they could apply if they're not eligible to determine if they're granted the scholarship, right?
Okay, and then if they get their scholarship, they can continue homeschooling under 193A, is that correct?
Yeah, that's my
That's my
understanding,
understanding.
but it'd be a question for I'd have to look at the law or talk with the Children's Scholarship Fund. Because it is in the law, but I don't recall the language of the law and I don't have it with me.
Okay. Okay. The second one is regarding a school counting homeschool classes for high school credit. We had someone approach us who went to their school thinking their student would get credit for the classes that they had done through homeschooling, and the school did not want to give them credit. So the question is, what, if anything, is the school required to count in terms of homeschool classes?
Can I ask what level of schooling this is?
This is high school.
So is that a question for me or? I mean, because I think we get a lot. Are you talking about when it's students looking to go back, a home educating students looking to go back into public school and they do I've heard it referred to as a transcript conversion.
Yes, that's right. They're looking to go back. They're looking to go to the high school. And in this case, I think the parents thought that the student should be a junior, and the school was saying, well, we're going to put them in as a freshman because we're not going to count the classes that you say that you've done.
Yeah, I guess I could say the home ed law and rule, as I'm aware, is silent on that issue. And it's been my understanding that the public school has the final authority on that. Because there's many ways for them to assess that. And I don't know, Mike, if you're familiar with.
No, it'd be,
How that's
it
done.
would be similar to a student transferring in from private school, and they may or may not accept certain courses or credits. So the receiving school gets to decide what they accept.
Okay.
Typically, they would look at the course catalog for the district that the child's going to school in to see what courses actually align and if there's actual documentation or work products that the parent could bring to show or the child would show that they actually completed the coursework. So I've seen credit given for that kind of stuff.
Okay.
How would a parent go about resolving an issue? I know it can vary by district, I'm sure, or even by school perhaps, but what would you recommend? I'm assuming some sort of communication at some point if you wanted to appeal a decision to reject a home educator's transcript.
Well, I think what Heather was getting to was they need to provide some kind of evidence of
Yeah.
what was accomplished.
Right.
So whether that was
Exams.
an exam or a product, a paper
Yep.
written, something that shows the level of attainment that would allow you to start a conversation.
And match up to the competencies that the district has, because that's the sanctioned curriculum for that district. That's
Right.
based on the school board, so appealing that, I would assume it would be similar to a chain of command for anything, even within district, which would be, you would go to the principal, the superintendent's office, and then finally the school board.
Some schools have or allow parent overrides of the
Mhm.
school decision. And so you may ask about that. You know, if the parent and the school disagree about the student's placement, then the parent override that decision and sign a little form saying, this wasn't recommended for my child, but I'm gonna have him proceed anyway.
Okay, great to know. Great. I mean, this is somewhat of a review, but it's with all of the changes that we've all experienced over the past several years. We want to make sure we're on firm footing when we talk with our members and advise them on these things. So I appreciate that that perspective. So the next question would be, is a child considered to be homeschooling under 193A if they are attending a full-time accredited high school program online?
So I can answer this one. So in compulsory attendance, there's several pathways. I just had this conversation with a parent. And by accreditation, what the compulsory attendance says, if it's in out-of-state school that is approved by the state education agency where the school is located, then they're attending an approved out-of-state school. That's not home education. The school is not approved by that state education agency, then that would be considered home education or EFA, depending if they're in that program.
Can you reiterate that?
Yeah, so one of the pathways under compulsory attendance law is if it's an online school and the online school is located physically in a different state, they would be considered an approved non-public school if they're approved by that state's education agency. And therefore, it would not be considered home education. So it wouldn't be any different than if a kid was going over the Massachusetts border and attending an approved Massachusetts private school, which a lot of people do. That's not home education. So the fact that it's online is still not considered home education as long as that school is approved by that state's education agency. And that's right in 193:1C, I believe is it one? I don't know. No, 1C is equal access. Nix that last one. No, I just had this question from a parent saying, hey, my kid's going on online, accredited online school. And so the term accreditation, it doesn't mean that they're approved by a state agency. It just means it might be accredited by Cognia or NEASC, right? Accreditation is not the same as approved by that state education agency. So I just encourage parents to ask the school, are you approved by your state education agency?
Okay. Okay, that's a good clarification. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I can give you the citation too. I have it.
Okay,
Give me a second.
So like, if we just use VLAX as an example, what's the outcome?
VLAX, if they're enrolled full-time, that's a public school.
Mhm.
They're a public charter school, so you're a public school student.
So we're not home educated.
If they have 4 out of their 5 courses, then it changes. Because they're home educated for one thing.
I don't know.
Yeah,
How it's full time.
Yeah, it would be a VLAX. I mean, you can, if a local school district allows you to do something in home, out of the school district and award you credit for it, it would be the same with VLAX. Yeah, so VLAX is a public charter school. And so what we let families know, because some families use it full-time, they enroll and then said you're out of our program. But if you're using it to supplement your home education program, you're still home educating.
Doesn't VLAX require students to apply
Mhm.
to be a full-time
Yes.
student? So
Yes,
you,
it's a pain.
you would know if your student was a full-time
Yes,
public
yes,
school student. There's
Yes.
no guesswork with that.
right. My understanding, VLAX has a trial period, I believe, because it's an online learning is a challenge and they want to make sure you can do it. So we have many families that they have to register to home educate for the first one semester and then they get fully enrolled and then they terminate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's a little, it's the only organization we have that we have to do that for. So,
Okay.
but VLAX seems to understand that now, so they're directing parents to do it appropriately.
Okay.
Yeah. So that citation, so the compulsory attendance is, I'm sorry, 193:1.
all in one, right. Okay. And 193:3, section 7 is the one that this person referred us to, or that we researched and came up with, which is, it says, the child is attending a public or private school located in another state, which has been approved by the state education agency of the state
Yes.
in which the school is located.
That's
So
right.
yeah. And I think we were not making the distinction in our minds between accredited and approved by the state education agency. So that clarifies it. And it says, or is attending a private school located in New Hampshire that is approved as a school tuition program by the school board. Pursuant to the, yeah. Okay, yeah, well, thank you for that clarification. Are we ready to shift to the next question, or did someone else have any comments on that one? No.
Like you're ready for go.
So the next question is, well, I guess related to that, some people had the impression that an online out-of-state school that has no physical buildings is not considered a private school. Is there anything in that, or is that just?
It would be up to the state. Again, I think you default back to the state where the school is operating from.
Yep.
And what they determine it to be.
Okay. So that all falls under the same paragraph there. Okay.
I do have a question about that because there are some online schools who allow students to enroll in online courses, but there's others that have almost like a home study course. Would that make a difference in the route that the student's parents chose?
I guess it would be on a case-by-case basis, but I guess
Okay.
if both those options are considered by the state education agency as being a pathway to a diploma, then
Mhm.
again, I would defer back to that state's education agency and what determination they have made,
Okay,
right? Because if there's multiple ways to earn your diploma and that state education agency has said, yes, that's good, you're approved, it would be up to them. So
okay,
it's nothing we could really
Right.
answer.
interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask Althea a question?
Sure.
How, what was the reason the parents were asking about whether or not they were homeschooled, if they were using online, if they were enrolled in an online school in another state? What was their objective? What were they trying to determine? Eligibility for athletics? Or it just seems like they're trying to split hairs or get down to some nuance of the law. I just want to understand that a little better.
I wasn't involved in that direct conversation. This was a conversation that one of our board members brought from a homeschool co-op or group that they are involved in directly. So I think that at that co-op, people were really digging into the law and looking at the options that they had chosen for their families, and just trying to make sure they were by the book and that they were following the rules, and yeah, wanting to make sure that what they were doing was legitimate under the law.
Okay, thank you. Those are just instances and questions I hadn't heard. So thank you.
So then let's see. Okay, and then there's one last one, and thank you all for your patience here. This was a call that one of our board members received, and let's see. Well, I'm trying to decipher my notes. So they had, this was someone in Berlin High School. They said they called the Department of Ed to try to clear up this question, and they hadn't heard back. But let's see. I guess this was related to the question of the accredited high school program. Yeah. So I apologize. My notes are slightly confusing here. So the last thing was that we're still hearing ongoing confusion about the difference between 193A and 194F. And I think families are really talking a lot about it, maybe more than had been in the past, which is a good thing. They're reaching out to us, as you've seen in the prior questions, trying to clarify the things that come up to them. And I know that other homeschooling or some other homeschooling organizations are not dealing with 194F. So they're saying, we are here to serve people who are homeschooling under 193A, and we just are not getting involved in 194F at all. Once you switch to 194F, you have to get your information somewhere else. We are really trying hard to grapple with both sides of this equation to help people who are maybe their families are doing a combination of things. We also, of course, support people who have children going into school, into public school, coming out of public school, and then maybe thinking about going back again at a later date, and her trying to stay prepared for that. So a question came up about the notification that families who want to receive EFA funding, I think who have been approved and who have to send in that letter saying that they're converting from 193A to 194F. I think in the suggested language, which of course is not mandatory, but I think that maybe it's on the website, there's some suggested language that says that we are terminating our homeschool program under 193F, and we are switching to 194F. This group of people felt that felt divisive to them, and they said actually within their homeschool co-op there are some disputes going on between funded and unfunded homeschoolers. They brought up an example of there was some sort of materials being distributed for free among the group, and people were saying, oh, well, why don't you leave those free materials for the unfunded homeschoolers because you're receiving EFA funds. So it seems like it's a negative, a downside to this. I had not heard of this kind of conversation happening before. Yeah, so I guess the question is, when they're writing in to say we are terminating our 193A program, are they required to say terminating our homeschool program under 193A, or can they say that they're continuing homeschooling under 194F and just terminating under one law and picking it up under another law?
So I can only do 193A, which requires when you terminate, you send a termination notification to the participating agency you originally notified. And it has nothing to do with EFA. So there is a question of in management of the EFA program, should we know why a family is terminating their home education program? Now, there's nothing in rule or law that says I can ask that question. We don't have that on our template form, for example, and it doesn't have any value to the home education program under 193A, why you terminated. And I understand it's an EFA issue, and so I don't mean to push it off, but you do have to submit a termination. You're supposed to submit a termination notification under 193A. Right. I know we don't get very many termination notifications because, you know, kiddos just go back to public school, and if they didn't send me a termination notification, there's no harm there, right? But with the EFA, there is a difference, and so I'm not sure how EFA is handling that requirement, because it is in their law, as I understand, that you have to terminate your home education program. So I don't know if eventually if there will be some kind of link between my program and Brian's program to tighten up on that notification being done somehow. But as far as why you're doing it, I have no authority to ask that question.
Just simply say
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's invasive.
It's a statement,
Yeah. We talked about, could we make it an optional? Like we have phone number now on our forms. Phone number is not in the law. But we put it as an optional thing. So if there's a problem, I can give you a call and we can clean up any problems with the form. And you know, about half the parents put their phone number in, half don't, and that's fine. But we put optional next to it because it is not required under the law. But I don't know if I would do that with the reason why you're terminating. I think that's information I don't need to know.
Can I pop in here for a second?
Yep.
Absolutely.
So Alethea, it seems to me what I'm hearing from your end is that we have some parents who are struggling with the language because the language is kind of harsh, right? The word termination is sort of a harsh word. And so you've got these parents who are a bit up in arms because they're thinking, well, I'm not terminating my homeschool. I'm continuing in the same trajectory. I'm just adding a resource to my family. But in adding that resource, the state says I'm terminating one and beginning another. So I wonder if there's any room for us to look at that language and think of, is it hospitable for one? And how can it maybe be a little bit friendlier so that it's not divisive?
So can I ask a question? Because I think maybe the reason why I hear the concern perhaps around the language, but they're two distinctly different offices and things. And as I recall, there was a concern on the home education side of it to keep the buckets separate. So if a parent, I don't actually see that as a harsh word. I'm terminating this office in home education here, and I'm moving over. It's kind of like you're moving from one set of rules and laws to another. So I think that so perhaps what it really comes down to is how people who know about it or who work in those offices, or some language that could accompany that, or in your groups, how we educate parents and families, that no one's saying you're deleting home education. You're not following this set of rules and laws now. You're actually following this set, because they are different. So I don't know, I just think that might help people understand it better. So that's the termination, is in essence, they're terminating Tim.
Right.
And they're gonna take on Brian and his office. So is that fair to say? Is that what it is?
Yes, in
Right,
the case of, if you are going to the EFA.
Right.
But if
So,
you're
right,
just
'cause they're
terminating.
not the same thing.
Right. It's just that if you say I'm terminating, if it says you're terminating home education, then that means you're ending home ed in
Well,
that parent's mind,
I hear what you're saying is
you know?
and I'm saying maybe some language
Yes.
parent that sort of potentially is bridging, in the sense that you're giving up it here under these set of rules. It still can be considered home education there. It's a different part of this department and how it's handled and set of rule. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
get-
like you're transporting over here.
Right.
It's-
Right.
But there's some timing issues with that too, because a family may apply for EFA, they may not be approved. Or it may be a while until they hear that they're approved, and maybe they're approved and they're waiting some sort of approval from the Department of Ed, and then they're not funded. So like, when do they officially become a 194F student? Because as a home educator, I would not want to prematurely notify that I'm ending a home education program if I don't know that that money's in the bank for my
Yeah.
child.
Can
Well,
I
not
make a
the bank,
suggestion that we invite Brian to one of our meetings?
I invited him today.
Oh, darn.
That would have been good timing, yeah.
So I guess my response to that would be, I would not terminate my home education piece until I was accepted and actually enrolled in that,
Right, and the
Yep.
funding was available, made available to your student.
100%.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yep.
So I'll make a note of that to talk to
Yeah.
Brian.
Bummer.
So I did want to mention, so I think I've shared with you, but in the past that our office is very diligent about using the
Yeah.
term home education.
Yeah.
Because home education is defined in law in 193A. So that's some of the confusion I see in the field is there, and we see it with our legislators as well, is they just lump homeschooling into one big bucket.
Right.
And when we talk about home education, that means 193A, because again, it's defined in law. Homeschooling is not defined in law. And it's a generic term, and so I refer to EFA, it's EFA homeschooling, or we don't call it home education using the EFA. In our office, we're just very diligent about that, and I know there's been some in the field who want us to change our language. I'm like, and in a way, I'm almost like, no, you need to change your language, but I don't control the field, you know. And I get it, home educate or homeschooling is just an easy term, it means everything.
Yeah.
But where we're bound by the law and the rules we operate under, that's why we're very strict about using home education all the time.
So maybe like think about it like an umbrella. The umbrella, the overarching is homeschooling.
Yeah, exactly.
And inside of that is home education on this side of the umbrella. And on this side of the umbrella is the EFA program.
Right.
Can you get that visual on our website?
Yeah, I'm serious. You
I
could
mean, that would be so, I think it would be so helpful and
Yeah.
friendly to parents just to see that, oh, I'm still doing this. I'm just doing it in another path, right?
Right.
Right.
And that's why I think maybe Brian in the Children's Scholarship Fund has to push
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because that's where people are going is because Children's Scholarship Fund has a contract with the state of New Hampshire to manage the day-to-day operations of the program. Brian does not do that. He oversees the contract with the Children's Scholarship Fund. And so it's a little different. And so I would maybe have a conversation with Brian about how do we get the Children's Scholarship Fund to maybe provide more clarity on their website about like the transition is an important one. You know,
Right.
I think very rarely are people going to go from EFA to home education.
I think
think
if
it's
it
gonna go
became
the
more
other way.
restrictive or
Right.
hostile.
But under current,
that-
I think
right.
it's certainly going the other way, I think a lot more right now. And that's why, again, we added EFA to the home education webpage to try and help clarify this a little bit, but I don't know if it did or not. You know?
But many families I talk to about it, it's exactly as Lindsay speaks of it. And I think being on HEAC helps me understand it is different pathways, but a lot of parents see it as my day-to-day looks the same.
Exactly.
I'm adding a financial resource to enhance the education of my children. And that may be where some of the blur where we understand the law and the nuances of it.
So in that.
You're adding I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're adding a resource, but you're also giving up rights under
That's right.
194F. And I
Right.
don't think we need to sugarcoat it. I think those need to be spelled out clearly before people make the jump to EFA and 194F.
Because it's not just a matter of the label that one's one, you're doing that. The home education family has access to the public school and all those resources. And the EFA student, by choosing that monetary piece, does not.
Yeah. And
So I agree with you, Althea. I do think though that just whoever's talking to people, it's like an umbrella, homeschooling. Here's one set or one pathway, home education. Another is the EFA, and then just some bulleted pieces of what's different about them, because they aren't the same.
I think it also depends on who's answering the question. So if you're asking a question about the education freedom accounts and you're homeschooling your students, like say they're asking you, Althea, as the director of your organization, you should direct them straight to the Children's Scholarship Fund to get their answers so that they're not getting or to the Department of Education, so they're not getting information from you. If they're asking about how to follow the law under 193A, you're well-versed in answering those questions, and that's within the scope of your organization. What homeschooling looks like or home education looks like out in the field is a completely different conversation than the law. Does that make sense? So you have to make sure you're referring, like you can say, my organization is not equipped to answer the questions regarding the education freedom account. Here's where you get your answer, period. And then we've always answered questions in the field about 193A laws. I mean, we were all, back in the day when I started homeschooling, we were taught to carry the law with us at all times in case we were stopped in the grocery store. So there's a big difference in how home educators have been handling the law versus the new law under 194F.
Yes, I understand that, and I appreciate that. I think we are an organization that tends to carry the law with us still. And so we are trying to figure out all sides of the law and to serve everyone who's struggling with all of these issues. And we often refer people to a website, even to the NHED website. We are updating the legal section of our website. We try to do that, but frankly, the Children's Scholarship Fund website is really not very clear, in my opinion, when it comes to these things. So people go there, but they're still not getting the clarity and answers that they may be looking for. So we try to help them as best we can.
Can you contact me later on, like offline, to discuss some of those issues? Because we should definitely work with the Children's Scholarship Fund to improve that. I know that's out of the scope of this meeting, but as an aside, that's something we can find in the future.
Right, because I recently looked at the Children's Scholarship Fund Parent Handbook, and it clearly did say that if you're home educating your child, you need to terminate that program. And it makes it clear.
Yeah.
And it's at what point, right, as a parent or a guardian choosing a program for a child, do you have to take personal responsibility for that, right? So, we could give people information, but we can't make them act on it. And I think it's good to attempt to educate people, but it's also very difficult when you're in a co-op setting and, now you have to bring up when there's questions, okay, well, maybe it's enough to say, are you homeschooling with 193A or 194F to start the conversation? But that hasn't needed to be part of the conversation before, but it absolutely could make a difference in that child's education. But it's not something that we were taught to bring up. Oh,
Sure.
how do you fund your child's education? And it's often uncomfortable to talk about the financial aspect of it.
So I can bring this conversation up to Director Davis and Ryan
Okay,
and just make them aware that this was a topic of discussion and then see where they want to go with it. And I can bring that back to our next meeting.
thank you.
If that makes
Thank you,
sense.
that'd be awesome.
And Director Davis, who is that?
Caitlin Davis, she's the director of our division.
Thank you.
Any other questions or?
No, that's the end of ours, so I appreciate the time and the response.
Great questions. I accidentally skipped over our legislators to go right to home educators. So Katie, do you have any updates for us from the legislators?
No, thankfully, that's always a good thing for all of us when we're not making laws. No, just one update is that the ED 306 rules that were going to be approved by JLCAR yesterday were not approved. That was postponed until all of the ED 306s come before JLCAR. That's where that was referenced earlier.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? ED 700 is waiting on
The high set rule.
high set. Yeah. Waiting. So it's still going to be you're still going to be waiting on that.
Dan, you had some questions?
Katie? Can I ask about two things that I ran across today? One is probably better asked to Ruth. It is a Senate bill, but SB 459 was a Child Protection Act. It died by non-concurrence back in June. But today I saw that there is a meeting next week for a study committee of the Child Protection Act. So I dug further and found that in HB 1499, it was tucked in behind some information like renewable energy, things that were completely unrelated. And I'm wondering if you know anything of this or whether or not we should be watching this.
If it's something of interest to you, probably sounds like it was added as a non-germane amendment. Yeah, it's hard to watch all of those non-germane amendments at the end of the year.
Yeah, so it's September 24th, 9 AM, Senate Study Committee. But I was shocked to see that there was such a study committee because it was part of that SB 459 that got killed. The other one, veto day, is what, October 10th or something? Is there
Yes,
anything on that list that we should expect to see maybe move forward? Maybe 396 is on there, or
I don't think we'll have enough I don't think we'll have enough votes to override any vetoes.
okay. And we're going to this,
Based on the makeup of the House. I mean,
right,
and I haven't heard yet pushing for, attendance, that bill won't, 396 won't change at all.
all right.
I mean, it would be a surprise to me if if there was compromise and we managed to get the votes we needed to override a veto.
Okay. All right, that's it, legislative. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Katie, do you happen to know when the deadline is for the House and Senate to submit LSRs? Are there different deadlines for those?
Oh, it's in November after the election, but I haven't focused
Okay.
on the actual date, to be honest with you.
Okay,
Because
thank
that's
you.
November 22nd. Deadline.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Representative Pettingill? Okay, hearing none. Diane, would you like to speak on behalf of CUHE?
Okay. We are seeing the same thing. Confusion over the difference between the EFA and the home education rules. Just continues to come up. Not very different from what Althea described. People are asking about the FAFSA. With the FAFSA changes that went through last year and the disaster that ensued. People, I mean, there was high transfer rates, the high school kids, weren't getting their acceptance taken care of, et cetera. And I did see that FAFSA is, doing a phased rollout this year. Some select groups are being rolled out, and then by December 1st, they're supposed to finish their rollout. But aside from FAFSA questions and the issues with the differentiation, no other issues.
Thank you. Okay. Hearing that, we'll move on to the home education community, the commissioner's representatives. So we'll start with Mr. Kosky.
No updates. Nothing's changed that I'm aware of, but
Or I got that term. You're his appointees, not his representatives. I just
Right,
want to get that
appointees.
terminology correct. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, Lindsay.
No updates. I've had the same questions that we've already discussed regarding EFA and home ed. So we touched on it already.
Okay, awesome. And moving right along to the New Hampshire Administrators Association, Heather.
Sure, I don't really have an update per se, but I'm more than happy to continue to help educate school districts or hear when there are questions or concerns about home educating families accessing resources and programming at schools and within districts. So, and again, I do an update at our association monthly, so I'll be sure to remind people of that rule and those updates. So again, anytime you need help with that, just let me know.
Thank you. Yep. Any questions for Heather?
Yeah,
Yeah.
is there any advantage to myself or Ally coming to your meetings and doing a presentation? Because we
Yeah.
continue to see,
I think we
we
should, yeah.
continue to see, we had a school that they actually sent a truant officer to a child's house because
Mm.
they enrolled in the
Yeah.
EFA, and the person at the school had never heard of the EFA, which I struggled to understand, but.
It's a little
So
disconcerting.
we send them, we send them compulsory attendance law, and we point to,
I would love to do
So,
that with you. I'd be happy to
yeah.
do that with you. And actually, I will add one thing. I did sit on a meeting this morning with Amy Aiello and a statewide group that is really focused on literacy and really improving outcomes for children, all children. And I highly encourage you to encourage your home education families to access the PIC website, PIC PIC website. There is an amazing, I saw it today, set of resources for families for when they have children, because that's another thing I've helped this council with, or this advisory committee with, is what happens with special education and home education. But PIC has done a tremendous amount of work to include 4 different areas with incredible links and resources, and even just how you go about moving through the special ed process of, in this case, your child is struggling to learn to read, and it's linked up to the dyslexia law. So again, just came out of that meeting today and I was utterly impressed, and I would hope that home education families as well, and certainly EFA families, know that that's a resource in New Hampshire. So I'm just gonna put a thing out there for PIC. They did an amazing job.
do you think that'd be something that'd be appropriate to put under our resources section on
I
our
think it
webpage?
surely would, yes,
Okay.
because that's
Yeah.
another thing that over the years, different groups have come and asked us questions about that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say that'd be a great link. Yeah, and Amy Aiello is overseeing that group. Great work.
And just to clarify, I think you're referring to the Parent Information Center.
Yes.
I just Googled PIC website as you were speaking, and I
Oh,
got a pork group, so I think
yeah, no, it's, yeah, so
nothing to do with pork.
I live in acronyms, it's true, special
Yeah,
education
it's
is right. So
Parent
yeah,
Information
the
Center.
Parent Information Center, yes, yeah.
You know, in my experience, some families are resistant to seek evaluations from the public school system because they do not feel that there are entities there they can perhaps give information if their child has a educational disability, but they may not be eligible to actually diagnose a child. So they may go through private
Yeah.
diagnoses versus seeking one from the public school.
So the cool part about the resources I'm talking about is a very small list. So the Parent Information System is part of IDEA, right? So you have
Right.
the Disabilities Rights Center, you have the Institute on Disabilities, you have IDEA, and you have Parent Information Center. Every state has to have those. This, what I'm talking about though, is this would really appeal to those parents then, because it's resources for a parent to use to work with their own
Oh.
child versus
That is great.
go to someone who's gonna do it or go through an evaluation process.
Okay,
So and they have really nice prompts. It's designed for parents. It's beautiful. I
Okay.
loved it.
it's
So
good to know.
yes, you should check it out.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Tim, we'll bring you to the, statewide meeting.
Yeah, and because I'd like to
Yes.
talk to the
Yes.
schools about what the schools need to do.
Yes, yes.
Because reporting, for example,
I'm with
according
you.
to the school reporting, there's 40,000 home educating children in the state. And I don't think that's correct.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
So I just want some way to
Yes, so
help
I'll
with
talk
that.
to Mark.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other questions
No.
for Heather or comments?
Mhm.
If not, we do not have a representative here from the Non-Public School Advisory Council. So we'll move right along to new business, and that's to discuss our meeting day and time for the current year. Currently, the past council agreed to meet on the third Wednesday of the month from 2:30 to 4:30. 4:30.
Third Friday.
Oh, third Friday.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm all
Yeah.
messed up today with speaking. I'm glad you're here. The third
We all
Friday.
know what you meant.
Thank you. And so, And that is with, again, alternating months. So typically we meet on the odd number months with the even number being placeholder, which we did great last year because we had all of our regular scheduled meetings without having any makeup meetings. Last year we did talk a little bit about wanting to make sure that we, are mindful of any holidays that come up during that time period. So I did, I tried to do some research and I did find out that 2 of our placeholder meetings, take place during a holiday time or holy day. So the first was October 18th. That's a placeholder. And that's the Jewish holiday of Sukkot. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. That's October 16th through October 23rd. So I don't know if we had a need to meet before November, if we would want to schedule a date other than during that time. The other one is in April 18th. Again, that's in the placeholder month. And that is Good Friday during the Christian Holy Week, which is April 13th through the 20th. And it's also during the Jewish Passover of April 12th through the 19th. So is it still the intention of this council to refrain from meeting during religious holidays?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll just know if something comes up and we need to meet on one of these off months, we will not schedule a meeting on those predetermined dates. Is that cool with everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Would we like to continue meeting on the 3rd Friday at 2:30?
I'd love to talk about it because unfortunately, the 3rd Friday is the Friday that the New Hampshire Association of Special Ed Administrators meet. So I left there, right, I have to leave at like 2:15 and it starts at 1. So I'm missing the last 45 minutes, which is the business part of the meeting. So for example, I would normally give an update at that point. I've made the decision to put this in front of that for those months, but if there was a way to think about, and I don't want to upset the apple cart, but I did mention it to Tim, like, oh, we could move away from the 3rd Friday or just put it on a different day. I don't know if that works for everybody. So the 3rd Friday is a challenge because it's the exact same scenario. And they're not going to change that.
Okay. And I know some of the
Or
reason
I
that,
could come at 3:10.
okay,
I mean, that's another option. I could come a little bit later, as long as we have a quorum. If we didn't have, I would come to make that happen.
okay,
That would be the other option.
that's good to know. I know one of the
Yeah.
reasons we changed
Yeah.
is to make sure that the legislators could attend,
Right.
and that has really helped with that. I'm not
I
sure
love
how that works, or if we should
Yes,
come
we
back
want
and talk
to.
about this next month.
Yeah.
Thoughts, concerns?
When it comes to the legislature, I know our sessions are going to be on, most likely going to be on Thursdays. So Thursdays are not a good plan from January until June. And the members from the legislature are supposed to be on the education committees, which might be, the House Education Committee might be split in 2 next year, so that we aren't working so long and hard. But I don't know if that's actually going to happen. So from like January until the end of April, we're there 4 days a week just on hearings and executive sessions. So
Friday's
planning,
the best day for you guys, and I think Friday's
yeah,
fine.
Friday's the best day.
Is there a reason it's the 3rd?
I'm here every day.
Yeah,
2nd is fine.
So the 2nd Friday?
yeah, because I do remember that being our big conversation, probably what, was it like 3 years ago, maybe we made the decision?
Yeah, for Friday.
Was so that we could have you guys here, and it also helps to have it on a Friday, because then we hear what has happened from Ruth and you guys the day before, yeah.
Right. Do we want to allow everybody to check their schedule and then?
Yeah, can we bring it up
Okay.
next, like in November?
Let's do it.
And so what I'll do just for now is if we have enough people to start the meeting, I'll come, it's just across town, so I'll just come
Okay,
and get here as soon as I can. And then if we could look at a different night, I could just have the full meeting.
Okay.
That'd make it easier.
okay, that'd be great.
Great.
All right, everyone in agreement with that, that we'll take this up at our next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, great. And in the meantime, we'll look at 2nd Fridays. and see how that works and come back and report? Okay, thank
And
you.
if you don't mind checking on the holidays for those.
You
other
got it.
friends.
Tim, do you also need to check to see if there would be meeting space for us?
I can find a meeting space.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's not a concern.
yeah, because it's a couple months out, so that's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And there's not a lot of meetings on Friday afternoons here.
Okay. All right, so then, any other questions or comments about the meeting day and time? Seem like we all agree, we'll take that up next meeting. Next up under new business is establishment of a grievance committee. This is something that we need to do per ED 315. We did not have a need to meet last year. I don't know, this is my 4th year on the council, so in the 3 previous years, I don't know of any need, but we need to have one established in case there is a hearing that needs to,
I thought we made one not last month, but the meeting before that.
we did, but we've changed councils
Oh.
now, right?
Yeah.
So, so the chairperson needs to, pick a subcommittee consisting of no more than 5 members. And the majority should be the home education associations. So that puts, I'm thinking possibly 3 people. So is there any volunteers? So we would need 2 of those people to be from the home education associations and,
I'll volunteer.
okay, Diane will volunteer. Althea, that leaves me and you. Are you interested in serving on that capacity?
I think it would be best to say thank you, but no at this
Okay,
moment.
good. Okay. I will serve then as the other member of the Home Education Association that's present in this meeting. And then is there anyone else who would like to serve on the grievance committee?
I'll do it with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, I will nominate the HEAC grievance committee as Diane Nolan, Heather Barker, and myself, April Villani. Thank you guys for volunteering to serve in that capacity. Item C is establishment of a rules committee. This is something that was suggested by Attorney Brown in the past when we met with her. So if something came up, we have a few people to take a look at the rules and then report back to the council. So do we have anyone willing to serve in that committee? I don't. Do you know if we have any information? Do we expect the rules to be reviewed?
Well, they could be reviewed at
At
any
any
time,
time,
right?
that's right.
And so I think it might depend on how the elections go,
Okay,
right? I think that may influence if they're gonna open the laws or the rule,
okay.
so.
So do we have,
I'll happily participate in that too. Okay, great, Lindsay, thanks.
okay,
I'll do rules committee. if you need
Nice.
Another,
any home educators open for that? Okay, I'll volunteer myself.
Okay.
I don't volunteer. So, okay, so the HEAC Rules Committee will be Heather, Lindsay, Mike, and April. Thank you for coming. It's 4 o'clock and Heather has to leave the
Yep.
meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Heather, for
See you
being
guys.
here.
Bye, Heather.
Have a
Thanks
great
for
rest of
splitting
your
the
day.
meeting and being here. I
Oh, no
appreciate it.
problem. Glad I was able. It's here for you, Tim.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm not sure if we need to vote on the Rules Committee. We probably should, because that's not by appointment. So just to make sure we're doing our best to do things as we should, could we get a nomination for Heather, Lindsay, Mike, and April to be the Rules Committee?
I nominate Heather, Lindsay, and Mike to be on the rules committee.
Okay,
No, it's-
April.
And April.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Althea. Okay, any discussion? Okay. Hearing none. Althea,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So has officially voted on those individuals for our rules committee, so thank you. We do not have any continuing business, so we'll move right along to the rulemaking legislative updates. So number one is about the ED 700, which Tim has already given us
Yep.
an update on. Any other questions or comments about that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move along to the legislative service request. On this list that we have in our agenda is just several that are already out there that we may want to keep our eyes on. As we know from last year, there were bills that whose titles had nothing to do with home education, but did ensnare home educators. There were some bills regarding right to know, and that did affect our council as well. So these are just some of the ones that we know are out there, and I'm sure we're going to discuss these. If there's anything that anyone wants to put on here, just let me know in the future, and we'll make sure that we put it on here, and as they go to bills, we'll get our legislators to update us. Any questions or comments about these? Okay. Is it helpful to have these on the agenda to keep track of from meeting to meeting, or is it too much information? I'm just curious.
I like seeing it. I wouldn't know to look for some of these otherwise.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other feedback? I'm just concerned, is it worth having this sort of detail on the agenda?
I thought so.
Okay,
I think it's useful as information. I would just want to make sure that things are really, our job is home education, so as long as it's actually regarding home education and not broader social issues.
okay,
Mhm.
okay. Thank you. Okay,
Are there any on the list that you think are broader social issues?
that's a great question.
I mean, I looked at the titles. I didn't have a chance to dig into each one, so I'm not sure.
Okay. And I think that's the thing right now is LSRs. We can't really be sure until the bill language is out there, right? We have a chance to look at that. Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, moving on to informational items. The first item is the 2023-2024 annual report. That was indeed presented to the State Board of Education on June 13th, 2024. The questions they had were very benign. They seemed welcoming of the report with a thank you. So Tim was there and he was able to answer some of the questions that they had, but I got the sense that the state board really seems to understand particularly 193A and there doesn't seem much confusion, if any, with the state board. So that was really positive feedback, I thought. So any questions or comments about this state report? Okay, hearing none, we'll move right on to the FAFSA. This is just an update that the previous law was repealed that required the FAFSA as high school graduation. But Diane, you had some other questions about FAFSA?
No, just what I said earlier, that
Okay,
nothing new.
okay. Any other questions or comments about FAFSA? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to under informational items, opportunities. So there's several of these listed here that we can spread throughout our communities. And some of these are deadlines. So coming up is a deadline for the U.S. Presidential Scholars Program. And home education students are eligible to apply. The deadline is November the 13th. And the link to the application is here for those interested. The NHED is searching for a student mural artist. Or I think more than one, it seems like from this, because it says talented high school artist to paint the mural of the NHED mascot, Max the Moose. The entry deadline for that is October 1st. One thing we were going to hear about today in our presentation was holiday cards for our military challenge. And the deadline for that is November 15th, and we have a link for more details. There's tutoring opportunities available for students through tutor.com. You have a question about that? You had something to ask? Oh, okay, sorry. With tutor.com and SAT tutoring boot camp. And both of those are at no cost to students, including home educated students. There's some webinars coming up. There's the NH Pathways to High School Completion. That's coming up September the 26th via Zoom. And there's a link for more information and an event flyer. There's also a Level Up Doorways to Your Future event coming up, and that's to present information about post-high school opportunities to meet prospective employers and hear from current students. There's one coming up October 18th and November 1st, and an RSVP is requested. And another one I hope that many of you have already heard about, because there's a lot of hype about it, is the New Hampshire Bringing Back the Trades and Trade-a-Palooza Career Fair. And Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs, the TV show, is going to be there. You do need to purchase tickets for that. That's November the 15th, and that's at NHTI in Concord. As part of that, that event, there's going to be under scholarships, student scholarships, totaling $50,000, which will be awarded to individuals in attendance at that event on November 15th. So that's some great opportunities to spread out there. Any questions, comments, anything to add? Does anyone know of other opportunities we should be spreading the word about? Okay, thank you. All right, hearing none. Wow. We're going to be done before 4:30, I think. Next up is announcements, and that's our next meeting schedule. So the next is October 18th if needed, but we talked about if it's needed, we will not meet on that date. We'll figure out something different. And then our next regularly scheduled meeting is November 20th. Any questions, comments about our meeting dates? All right, hearing none, we'll go to open board discussions. Any questions, comments about something today or not today you'd like to discuss? Althea?
Looking at the calendar, I think November 20th is Wednesday. Is that correct?
I can check real quick. You're right, Althea. It should be November 15th. Thank you for that correction.
Yes, 15th, right.
All right, so that should say November 15th is our next scheduled meeting. Thank you, Althea.
And that's the same day as the trades fair, just FYI. I don't know what time the trades fair is, all day.
I'm not sure. If you have a copy of the digital agenda, you can click on it and find out. I don't have it right available. I can try to get it available. We can see who gets it first, if you want.
It's it's a little confusing, 10 to 2. The doors open at 9.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it looks 9 to 2:30 PM.
30, right?
Are there people who are attending that it may affect their attendance that you know of? I mean, we always try to send out an RSVP request to see if we're going to have a quorum to meet.
I mean, the person would have to want to be there until the very last minute to not make our meeting, so maybe we're safe.
Okay,
And it isn't Concord.
that's
So-
true.
Right.
So hopefully the person's child, if the person may go, will be awarded a scholarship and can excitedly come to our meeting and
Sure.
tell us about it. That would be great. Thank you. That's a great distinction. Thank you very much, Althea, for that. Any other discussions or questions from the board or the council? Okay, hearing none, we'll move right along to Roman numeral number 15, public comments. And there's currently no public present either in person or online. So we'll let our minutes reflect that there was no public present for public comments. We do not have a need to go into non-public session today. And with that, we're right to adjournment. But before I go to adjournment, one last chance. Any comments, questions before we adjourn? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting today.
To adjourn today's meeting.
Thank you, Mike. Do we get a second?
Second.
All right, with the motion to adjourn the meeting today. Mike made the motion, Diane seconded. On any discussion? Okay, on a roll call vote. Lindsay,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Althea,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So we will adjourn our meeting at 4:14 PM. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too, April.
Bye.
Bye.
The gavel. Thank you, everyone, for working so hard to get us through this in less than 2 hours.
Good job, everyone. Thank you.